Welcome into a Locked On NBA Insider Report. SiriusXM host Antonio Daniels joining me once again. We're talking about the Lakers, of course. The season is over for them, so that means there's going to be a new head coach. Frank Vogel, given his walking papers after 3 years, got that championship for them in the bubble and then didn't make the playoffs this year. So they're moving on. How big of a surprise is this, if at all?
It's not a surprise at all.
Yeah.
We know the way this works. We know how this works. No matter what happens, it's a lot easier to change the coach than it is to trade a player. Mm-hmm. So a lot of times what happens is the coach is the one that ends up falling on the sword. So you knew, 50, 60 games into the season, if there wasn't a significant turnaround. And the thing by significant, I mean the Lakers not just making the play-in, not just making the playoffs, but actually advancing in the playoffs. You knew Frank Vogel was going to be the one to fall on the sword. Here we are.
And with, someone like LeBron leading the way, he's not going anywhere unless he chooses to. So when the Lakers go forward with this search, how much of it is going to be who LeBron wants in there and who LeBron will work with?
See, that's a great question, because part of the reason that the Lakers are where they are now is because of the voice and influence of LeBron as a whole. Mm-hmm. So this is something that comes along with the territory of being a star player. So when you hear all the time, LeBron cast a big shadow, this is a part of the shadow that comes with that. Yep. So now moving forward, what kind of coach makes sense for the LA Lakers? That's one question. The other question is this roster, the way it's currently constructed, is it capable of success? Is it? What kind of coach can you bring in that will have the respect of LeBron, right, the respect of Anthony Davis, and can speak and relate to everybody in the locker room? I'll tell you the first name that comes to my mind here. When we talk about the Eastern Conference, and you talk about the fact that the Philadelphia 76ers could possibly lose first round to the Toronto Raptors, first name that comes to my mind off top, Kanani, is Doc Rivers. Mm-hmm. First thought that comes to my mind. Second thought that comes to my mind is, if the roster stays as currently constructed, what you want to do is you want to bring in an offensive coach. You want to bring in a coach that understands how to play with pace, how to play with speed. So I'm looking at somebody like Mike D'Antoni.
Okay.
Because the Lakers on the day, they're not going to be a defensive juggernaut. Not at this age, not when you have guys that aren't defenders at this point in their career. So now you have to look to flip the script, so to speak. But here's the thing. Is there a coach out there that can change the age of the Lakers? No.
Right.
Guys are who they are at this point in their career. If you look at Dwight Howard, Carmelo Anthony, LeBron James, you are talking about Russell Westbrook. You are talking about guys by age that are past their prime. So is there a coach out there that can turn back the clock on these guys? No, because Father Time is undefeated. But is there a coach that can put this team collectively in a better offensive position? Possibly.
And I think you teed in on that a little bit with, either Doc or D'Antoni. It's that veteran experience, so they have the respect, but then also, being able to work with what they have, because you're not going to get a young guy coming in and getting that respect from LeBron necessarily right off the bat. So having the respect factor so that they at least listen to what you have to say is going to get you a lot farther. But you also have to look at, and this is a little bit about what the Lakers are choosing to look at long-term. If LeBron's not there, potentially past another year or maybe two, they need to look ahead and kind of find someone that can, rebuild with. But are they going to do that is the question.
I think that's easier said than done. I hear you, because it comes a time in every franchise's history where you have to replace someone that has ERA after their name. Anybody that has era after their name, it's going to be a significant turnaround. But a lot of times, teams don't look to address that until they're there. You know what I mean? So this goes back to the first question that you asked, Kanani, about how much influence do you give to LeBron James's voice? If I only think that I have you for another year or two, and you tell me this is the coach that you want, so am I just bringing in that coach for 2 years? Am I bringing in that coach for a year? So it puts organizations in different positions. If you don't know moving forward what your star player is going to do, I think it's tough to do both. It's tough to say we're going to listen to what you say and honor what you say. But on the flip side of that, we have no idea what we're going to get from you moving forward as far as the commitment is concerned. I think that's a tough position to put any organization in.
I think, adding to the list of things they're going to need in a new coach is
Right.
someone that can build around these guys, right? Because they don't have a ton of money. They don't have picks left. They don't have a lot of capital to get it, but they do need those role players. Like, as they're currently constituted, I don't think anybody thinks they're going to win a championship like that, right? They have the stars, but do they have the pieces that make it work? So how difficult...
They let that go. They let
did?
that go. And that's the issue. That's the issue when you go back and you look at last year's team. When you lose guys like, I feel like we pay a lot of attention to stars. There are probably 20, 30 stars in this league. So that means you have 420 or 430 role players in this league. Role players don't get enough credit for what they bring to really good teams.
Absolutely.
Because we pay a lot of attention to the stars, and the attention for the stars is warranted. But when you go back and you have guys that are willing and able and embrace their role, like, that's priceless. So when you go back to the bubble team, you have a Caruso, you have a KCP, you have a Rajon Rondo, you have a Kyle Kuzma. When you have guys like that are willing to play their role, blue collar guys, to offset the star power and the white collar guys, that's a great combination. What the Lakers didn't have this year is those same grit and grind guys that they won the championship with. So now the question that you ask yourself is, if LeBron is going to be there for another year or two, Anthony Davis being available / unavailable, Russell Westbrook being past his prime, or is he going to be there? Carmelo Anthony being past his prime, Dwight Howard being past his prime. If you're a younger player now,
right,
is this a situation that you really want to walk into? Is this a stable situation moving forward as far as winning is concerned? Because I can tell you what, last year, before this season started, you have numerous guys that were willing to take a pay cut to come play in LA. The Kent Bazemores, the Nuns, the Avery Bradleys, all these, the Malik Monks, all these different guys that were willing to take a pay cut because they saw a championship on the horizon. Now, when you don't even see a play-in tournament performance on the horizon, like, ooh, this situation looks a little different moving forward now.
That being said, if you're a coaching candidate, do you want that job?
That's a great question.
Because, I mean, it's the Lakers, but like,
that's right.
It's this Lakers.
At what cost?
Right.
That is a fantastic question. If you are a head coach out there, and I think it's different, Kanani, because I think if you're a head coach out there that's not currently head coaching,
okay,
you know what I mean? Like right now, Mike D'Antoni's not coaching anywhere.
Right.
You know what I mean? Doc Rivers obviously depends on what happens and this is just me talking. It's not to say that Rob Pelinka and Bus have any interest in Doc Rivers whatsoever. I'm just, if you can turn back the clock, you would turn back the clock and bring in Tyronn Lue. If you can turn back the clock.
I think he would have loved that too. Exactly. He always wanted to coach there. Yeah.
No question. But now moving forward, again, it goes back to what kind of coach makes sense with this situation, with the roster, the way it's currently constructed. That's the question of the summer right now.
Guess we'll have to wait and see. Should be a good one, though. Whoever it ends up being, it's going to be a big job. So we'll have to be up for the task. Antonio, thank you once again for joining us. I'm Kainani Stevens. This has been Locked On NBA.